President Hudson.
Yes, be ready by Monday.
Resolution for Monday. I have items 10 and 11. Chief, could you, and Janet, could you speak to item 10, please?
Sure. The first item, item 10, is the GIVE grant. That's that gun interdiction program that we do where we team up with troopers and sheriffs and probation and parole. It's the standard grant that we've had for probably 10 years now. It used to be Impact, but now it's gun interdiction.
And you're expecting you'll get this grant?
Yes.
Okay.
The second one is Interfaith Works. And I think I have Officer Detective Russin. Is he still here? Where'd he go? Oh, he's right here. He can probably talk a lot in better detail to this because he actually attends those Interfaith Works.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, folks. So I know we have a couple other people here from Interfaith Works, so any questions that I can answer for you about this $30,000, excuse me. But the program's been going on for several years now, and Pete will have some more actual statistics about what the program is in terms of how many people have actually gone through it. On the police side, Chief Fowler and Chief Cecil have allowed me to run as the administrator for the program. And we actually have a spin-off program now that Officer Eric Gerace is working with. It's a youth program where Phil Rose, who's a community member, and then Eric Gerace actually work with youth to put them through these dialogue circles as well, too. The general format for the program is 5 weeks. It's 2 hours per week, and there's usually between 5 and 6 police officers and 5 and 6 community members that come into these groups and have a dialogue. It's a structured format where we've created an actual a packet, a curriculum, if you will, where we talk about different, wide variety of topics. It's part of the programs that I've been allowed to run at the police department, including the civilian academy, and then some of the use of force things as well too. So it's kind of a comprehensive package, and that's what it's part of.
Okay.
Can we get a copy of that package? That
The curriculum?
you put together, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
How do you distinguish what this effort's intent is from what the CRB's intent is? Not ability, but intent.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you last.
Not ability, but intent.
So I deal with the CRB through Raynette. So the intent, I would say, are totally opposite. This is for dialogue purposes. This isn't an administrative investigative purpose. Do things come up where, hey, something's been on the news or there's an issue that people want to talk about? Yes, but it's not for an administrative investigative purpose, which I would say is a big difference between the intent. This is not meant to be a debate or a monologue. It's really designed to be a dialogue, and that's why there's facilitators there. So there's a police facilitator, and then there's a community facilitator. They work in conjunction. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. So I think that really is the big difference in terms of intent, if that's answering your question.
Kind of. When you mention administrative, you're talking about ability versus intent.
Sure.
So ultimately the goal, I would assume, is to smooth over community and police relations, interfaith. To create some cohesiveness between officers and the community it serves, and vice versa.
There is. It's all about building trust, right? So do I think that we're smoothing over some specific problems? I wouldn't want to say that because specific problems, in terms of like one particular incident, right, I don't think is being hashed out in these dialogue circles. But general building of trust and legitimacy within the police department, that's the overall goal. But, in case there's an ongoing issue, there's been a notice of claim or there is a CRB investigation, the officers aren't generally at liberty to speak about those things. So I think that if I'm understanding your question correctly, that might be the big difference.
Well, I mean, my question was a bit rhetorical. I just wanted to see if you guys noticed that there was a similar intent. The goal is to smooth the overall relations between community and police. That's the intent of the CRB. They may have the ability for investigation and the like, but the goal is to improve community and police relations.
Okay.
This organization, with this effort, has the same goal. How do we be sure that we're not being redundant and spending money for the same thing in two different directions? And is there any maybe overlap in the effort to improve relations with Interfaith in this effort and the CRB?
So this is getting police officers in the same room with community members for 10 hours with an overall understanding of building trust and building relationships. You're not getting that with the CRB. You're not getting the number of officers that we've had to sit down with the CRB and have the same types of dialogues. That's just not, they're two totally different.
No, I get that. My question is, well, let me state what my concern is. When you consider the overall goal, we're spending money in two directions for the same goal. Doesn't mean that there's a waste, but I think there may be some benefit to maybe some people from the CRB attending those discussions as well. You get my point?
Sure.
You know, I think both efforts can kind of complement each other, where some of the things you guys offer, they can probably incorporate in terms of thinking and approach, and maybe there's some other things that you guys can pick up from them. I think in that respect, we eliminate the appearance of redundancy, and there's some benefit to both programs, or at least we could qualify as fiduciary agents that we're not spending money twice on the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. I agree with you. And I even take what you're saying a little bit one step further. It's the same thing with the Civilian Academy, too, because a lot of the CRB members did come to the Civilian Academy, and now you're developing these relationships. I think any exposure, to go to your point, any exposure between the police officers and the CRB, the members of the community, where it's not in the midst of any sort of crisis, I think is positive, to go to your point 100%.
Any other questions?
Yeah, please. What's your method of outreach? How do you get the youth to engage, as far as which youth are you targeting? How are you getting them to the table? And my second question would be, are there any activities beyond the conversations?
Right.
Or any, I've seen in some cities they do, like, football games or stuff like that. Are there any efforts beyond the conversations?
Yeah, so I'll answer your first question, sir, about the youth. So they're working with Eric Gerace. Officer Eric Gerace is working with Jamie over at PSLA, and so they're using that youth group as part of the group. I don't know if Eric is here yet, but he might be coming here. I know he was in something else, but there is a process to talk to the youths. I don't want to say it's in its infancy yet, because it has grown a little bit, and there has been a couple of youth circles, and that's led by Eric Gerace and Phil Rose. So that's really how they're targeted in that area. I think there's room for growth there. I think that the stories, some of it's anecdotal in terms of the information we're receiving has been positive. So that's to answer your first question. And the second one is in terms of more like kind of global outreach in terms of, and it sounds like you're saying specifically for youth, for football games. I don't know if you're talking about adults as well too.
Yeah, either or. I'm very, happy to see any situation where it's not an emergency situation. I like programs like this where the cops are interacting with the neighborhood and they can get to know each other in a non-emergency situation. So I've seen it's had some positive effects from data I've seen from other municipalities. So I was just curious if, with the youth or with the adults, whatever, just curious of other programs that might exist.
Yeah, so one of the nice things about this program is that it's building relationships that have been over the course of time, right? So there's been some personal relationships between police officers and the community members that have developed where it's just now you're on a first name basis. In terms of an organized structure or things that are going above and beyond that, the youth circle is a spin-off. That's probably the best example of a spin-off that have come from the original police community-wide dialogue circles. I think that there's other programs that people have in the back of their head that, hey, I think we could really could make some moves on that. But the youth program is probably the biggest spin-off to come from that in terms of, again, now we're putting police officers and youths in the same room having open dialogues, not a debate back and forth.
Great. And this is not at all a pointed question because, as I said, I like programs like this. And it's usually intangibles that are developed. But do you have any metrics to measure tangibly whether the program was a success or, boxes you try to tick or, numbers you try to get to or anything like that?
So I'm going to defer a little bit to Pete Wilner here because he's really the statistician of the group here. But he does have some numbers. So they do a pre and post survey, and we can give you the numbers now or just give them to you in a packet when we give the actual curriculum out as well too.
Peter, if you just email those to us, okay?
Yeah,
we'll get all those so we can.
Yeah, sorry, I know they want to move along. I was just very curious about the program.
Yeah, but there are numbers that Pete's been keeping since its inception.
Great, thank you.
How will you choose your volunteer facilitators? How are they chosen?
So I deal specifically with the police side of the facilitators, and so when we work at it, we've tried to make this kind of a grassroots organization program. So this isn't being pushed from the top down. Chief Fowler and Chief Cecil have given me the autonomy to run this program from the bottom up. So it's not, hey, you have to go to this training. We want people to be encouraged about going to this training. So we're taking a different approach than traditional police training, because normally when you go to police training, it's, oh, Mark Russin, you're going to this training for in-service, and you don't have the ability to pick and choose. So to go a little bit to your question, the people, after they've been through a police community-wide dialogue circle, we ask for volunteers, and we say, hey, are you interested in doing this? Are you interested in putting in the work? Because there is a lot of work that you have to do. The offline conversations, the late-night phone calls about talking to your co-facilitators. So if it's a police, talking to your community member. So we look for volunteers. And then we have a discussion amongst the kind of the administrative group. So it would be Pete Wilner, Phil Rose, and Melody Holmes, and myself will have a discussion about that. And then the community side, it happens in the same way. Pete Wilner will be more of the screening process. He'll do the same job that I do on the community side. But again, it's a kind of a collective decision as to who's going to be a facilitator, who's willing to put the time in for facilitator training, who's already been through the program. So there are some criteria that we definitely try and check off.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Rudd.
I have items 12, 13, and 14. Item 12 is there will be a public hearing tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. for the public to give its input on the city's budget. Item 13 is requesting the comprehensive review by New York State Financial Restructuring Board, which we had a finance committee meeting on last week, and I believe it is already. Are there any questions by councilors now?
Just a quick follow-up. I know we had discussed this before, but I just wanted to double check. With the restructuring board, it is we can sort of pick and choose after the fact, correct? It's not an all or nothing. I mean, I know initially it was, but
Yep.
we're positive that that's
Positive, that's correct.
okay. And other cities have done it that way and
That's
haven't
correct.
had it. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So that's ready. In item 14, I would invite Mary to come up, and she'll probably give a more eloquent explanation of this one than I will.
So, good morning, good afternoon, councilors. We're asking for a local law to exceed the tax levy limit if necessary. So we're proposing this to ensure that the city doesn't unintentionally go over the tax cap. There is some items that are added to our tax bills, and those items are not known until probably the end of May. There's some benefit assessment items like sidewalks and sweeping, and we don't have those numbers right now to do the calculations. So this is a protective waiver that protects the city for any possibility if we go over. And if we do go over, then we have to put that excess in a reserve for next year's levy. So hopefully, and we don't intend to go over. And if we don't, after our calculations are reviewed by the comptroller's office, we will come back to you in July to rescind that local law.
Could you just describe how close we were to going over last year, even though we had no intention of going over?
53,000. It was too close for comfort.
And it's
So,
because of the...
Well, you know, that law's been in effect since 2012, and I think the city now is starting to feel a little bit of that, those restrictions.
So, Mary, could you tell me, where are we with that 2%? Where are we in percentage?
It's the law is the lesser of 2% of the rate of inflation. The rate of inflation in previous years has been very, very low. So those calculations are not, the 2% tax cap is not 2%. This year, I believe, the inflation is running around 2%, so we may see an uptick then.
And as long as they approve it, we're not in any jeopardy with the state, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I guess it's sort of two questions. Realistically, how close do we really think we are going to get to this?
I don't know.
We have no idea
These
until we get
benefit
those
and
numbers.
you don't know until
Yeah.
they're put on the tax bill towards the end of May.
Okay.
And this waiver has to be in effect before the budget is passed.
And what would with this in place, there wouldn't be any ramifications of losing out on any type of grant or funding or anything going forward from the state?
Not to
as
my
long as we
knowledge.
put this in place?
Not
Okay.
to my knowledge.
Okay.
And some of the items that get added, I believe, were in conversations about them not being appropriate to add in the property tax calculation. So for instance, the way we bill for sidewalks that are condemned, is that?
We have our questions regarding those, and we'll take those up with the comptroller's office.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Carney.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. I have items 15. I just have 15.
Good afternoon. This is in order for us to complete an inventory of our trees, and we need to do it in a timely manner in order to satisfy a current grant that we have. And if we can also complete it this year, a new round of grants are coming out that this information will be vital for applying for.
What is this is this measuring the canopy?
It is going to inventory 7,000 trees, as well as the planting sites. I believe that's part of the canopy. Steve Harris couldn't be here today.
Okay. Great.
Questions? Thanks. That's ready. Those are my items.
Okay, I'll take Councilor Ryan's. Number 16 is supposed to have a information on this before Monday's meeting, so they're in discussion with the administration, I was told. And number 17 is to have Councilor Joe Driscoll put on the Onondaga County Resource Recovery Agency Board. Anybody have an opposition to that?
I am.
Yeah.
You're all in opposition? Can't win
Okay,
around here.
those are his, and they should both be ready. Councilor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 18 through 38. Item 18, we recently had a committee meeting last week. So this item is ready unless anyone had any further questions. Okay. And now we have item number 19, a special permit.
Yes, good afternoon, councilors. Item 19 is a special permit for indoor recycling center. It's a bottle and can redemption on the corner of Wolf and Carbon Street.
Okay.
Which district was that in again?
Zoning district?
No, council
Oh,
district.
2,
2, right?
Yeah.
He's nice.
Yes.
That's what I thought, right?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
outside, just in the chat.
Any questions?
No worries.
No. Okay. And 20.
Item 20, this is a special permit for a restaurant at 1700 East Fayette Street. This had been held over the commission, and DPW had asked for more information, and the owner worked with the different departments and submitted new plans, so this was approved, recommended for approval.
What cross street is this close to?
It's like Columbus and East Fayette, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Second.
It's that big orangish brown building.
Okay.
That keep opening up as something?
Yeah.
And then now it's
They're trying to put hot food in it. That's what it
They
is.
was Chinese before.
Mm-hmm.
Columbus, yes.
okay. Thank you.
So item 21 is also a restaurant, and this is a modification. This is on the corner of Bruce and Erie Boulevard, and this is, was previously a restaurant.
Sorry.
And we're just modifying the floor plan and signage.
Okay. I think I remember this one. Where is that?
Okay. And then item 22, this is a zone change request from a planned development district back to the previous zoning district, which was industrial. Some of it originally was residential A. In 2004, there was this proposal by United Auto Supply, and was changed to a planned development district requested by the owner. So they want to go back to the original. And just to give you a little bit of background, in case you're wondering, planned development district and planned institutional districts are very different zoning districts, meaning that they have a plan that is approved with them. So your anticipated development and your anticipated uses are already approved. So this was for warehousing, office, and basically warehousing,
Currently,
office, and storage.
The PDD, the current designation is for that, yes?
Yes, very specific to United Auto. It was changed to City Electric recently because United Auto has moved elsewhere.
Does City Electric currently need the industrial designation? Continue their operations as they would like to do them? Is that
Either
the
industrial or commercial, yes, or the PDD.
Okay. This was, I know you and I met about this one, and I was kind of concerned about one. Could we clarify in the potential rezone, the area around it will be MX3 or residential?
It'll be MX3. So I printed off some.
There's some residential over there.
There's a lot of residential over there.
That's kind of why this raised a flag for me, because I kind of think if I don't quite fully understand exactly what industrial. My concern, as I said to you, is that if it's industrial, it means increased noise and increased odors in what will be a somewhat residential area. I would kind of want to know further what the intent is and how further that could, if it has a new owner after the current owner, how that could, potential zoning difference could be exploited in a way that's not beneficial to the neighborhood.
Correct. So the PDD is a controlled development because you have that approved plan with the PDD. You cannot change the zoning to a planned development district or a planned institutional district unless you have a plan that goes with it that's approved by the Common Council. So as I said, your anticipated breadth of development and the intensity of land uses is already set, if you will. With any other zoning district, someone could develop to the potential of the most intense at that point.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm just trying to clarify. So we're going from the PDD to a PID?
No, back to industrial.
So PDD and PID are the ones where you have to have.
Those are the ones that
which you're
necessitate
referring
a
to
plan.
right there, where you have to have a plan.
Yes.
But an industrial district, they wouldn't have to come to us for approval before usage of the industrial space.
If the uses are permitted by right.
Okay.
The current use their City Electric's using it for now, would it need to be industrial, or could they operate under the proposed MX3?
MX3 would not allow warehousing or distribution. It would allow offices or retail sales.
But the potential was there to keep it PDD as long as it was not industrial, right? In the rezone effort, as I understood it?
Well, in the PDD, yeah, exactly. So we had not anticipated changing it because it's really up to the owner and their plan that has already been approved. Okay. So we intended to keep it PDD until we did get this request. And I did try to reach out to Councilor Ryan, but I haven't heard back from him. So.
Okay, would it be, I don't feel comfortable with it as is. Could we do a hold or maybe a committee meeting or something where I could get a little more information on exactly what's allowed in an industrial in the future? Because I would prefer, if it's going to be residential around it, I'd prefer it stay with at least within our control to that someone, you know, either a PDD or would PID be a compromise? I'm not familiar.
No, because that's institutional. The PIDs are Syracuse University, Krause Hospital, Loretto, and St. Joe's. The PDDs are previously United Auto, Salt City or City Electric, Stera Pharma, and Cathedral Candle. So those are for light industrial, where exactly what is used now. That's kind of what it's for, but it has an approved plan. So we already know and anticipate what the full uses will be.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll reach out to Councilor Ryan, but we'll go ahead and hold it for right now and call a committee meeting for that one.
Okay.
22.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now items 23 through 38.
Good afternoon, councilors.
Good afternoon.
For items 23 through 38, The list that's coming around to you includes only vacant property at this point. It is mostly vacant residential, 14 vacant residential structures, and 2 vacant commercial structures.
Thank you. There you go. I'm gonna hold item 29.
Okay.
And the rest, if we don't have any questions, they're ready. Thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to, before we break here, no, wait. You passed something out, Counselor Allen?
You said I passed something out?
Yeah, on CDBG.
Oh, no, that was.
Yeah, I didn't pass it out, but I
Son.
can,
Okay.
I guess they put it on the table.
Why don't you?
Yeah. Stephanie, can you come up for a second, please? So this was a letter that we received this morning from Syracuse United Neighbors. Did they give you a copy of it?
No, not yet.
Okay. You want to give her a copy of it? Oh, well, can you please give her a copy?
I read the newspaper, I don't think she does. But it was part of my speech.
Okay. So we will be able to hold an additional hearing, a public hearing?
Yes, but we still haven't received our allocation, so
Okay.
I don't know how much we're getting. While
Right.
HUD did get an increase, we're not sure how that trickles down. It's a formula.
Okay.
So I've been in contact with our field office in Buffalo, and they're saying we're moving as fast as we can, but they told us we may not know. Last year it was July 8th when we
Okay.
got our letter. So hopefully it'll be in June.
Okay. And so as soon as she's informed, we'll be informed, and you'll be informed. Okay? Thank you.
We got you on speed dial, Rich.
Thank you. That concludes our study session for the day. Can I get a motion? Second?
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.